Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Supernatural, as well as the latest episode of Legacies. Like always, I'm going to talk about something you want to listen to. You can always look in the description down below. I include a time on the start to talk about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Supernatural, you can skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of Legacies. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Supernatural. So, a very interesting episode where we kind of have Dean, as it kind of comes up later on, kind of like a farewell tour, because he's making all these excuses about, because he didn't tell Sam or anyone else about the knowledge he learned about in last week's episode, whatever it is that Billy informed him about. Obviously, we will learn about later on, but I'll get to that soon enough. But essentially, he didn't tell Sam anything about that or the book that Billy gave him or about all of this. He just makes some excuse like, oh no, I want to go see mom and I'll hang out with mom for a little bit. And Sam's like, oh, I'll go with you. He's like, no. Some alone time with mom. He's like, oh, okay. So he goes to see her and Donna. I also love Donna being like, yeah, Sam kind of told us about your situation. And he's like, geez, what does he have, like a newsletter out? Because like Sam is like informing everyone up-to-date stuff about what's happening with Dean. So first it was because they were looking for him, and now it's just because of everything he's going through with Michael in his head. So, but every time someone asks him if he's okay, it's like he doesn't want to talk about it because I guess, talking about it, I mean, to be fair, Dean's never been good at really talking about stuff. And it's even harder in a situation like this when he knows how stacked against him everything is. It's actually kind of sad in the long run, because he's hanging out with his mom and everything. And because even Sam thought things were up because it's like, Dean hugged me. And Mary's like, oh, that's sweet. Why is that so bad? He's like, we don't do that. I mean, we do, but usually when we do, it's kind of end of the world stuff where it's like, oh man, that's sad. You usually hug when it's, I mean, once again, it's like, I guess their upbringing and everything, it's just, they're not, it's weird. They can tell each other how much they love each other, but the thing is, I think they have a hard time expressing it, at any other time. And I guess that's the life of a hunter, too. You never know your time is up until your time is up. I mean, especially considering the Winchesters have died multiple times, and their time to be up has been up multiple times, and they've just never stayed down. So it's just kind of an interesting thing to think about. But in the long run, it did turn out not to be exactly what I thought it was, like the whole Billy situation. What she ended up telling him. The one thing in this world that can hold him is like basic, because I figured as much when he started building. I was like, he's building a cage like the one that was built for Lucifer, but now it's for him and Michael. He's building one here on Earth, which I guess to a certain degree you can kind of look at it and think of it like that, but it's something that he shouldn't have been able to build, but it's because Billy gave him the recipe for it, exactly, the outlines, exactly what to do, which is interesting. I mean, to be fair, Billy's kind of looking at things from a cosmic level of like, yeah, she might as well help out because if she does it, things are going to go terrible. Like, being deaf and everything, she has to kind of keep some sort of balance in the world. And it's like, if she wants to kind of keep Michael from kind of going all catastrophic on not just this world, but all worlds, then this has to be done. Because every other outcome shows Dean losing this battle and Michael taking over and causing mass destruction. So, because if you didn't know, my thought last episode was like, the only thing that could happen is like maybe take Dean to like the empty, but then I was kind of like, nah. I mean, especially with all that's going on with Lucifer potentially waking up in the empty, and people can get out, I guess with enough force, and because obviously Castiel ended up getting out, but still you get, so I'm like, I feel like Michael would be able to get out too. So I was like, maybe on a different world. I was thinking this has something to do with the bad place, but it turns out no, it's all about here. He's just going to be locked in a coffin for all eternity with him and just Michael, which is very interesting because, they don't really make the comparison, but it's very much like The Sale, because it's kind of like how Lucifer and Michael and Sam's soul were kind of caught in the middle. So it's almost kind of like that to an extent, which is interesting and sad because it's like he was going to do this without telling anybody, especially Sam. But for him, it's like, I had to not tell you because you were the one person who'd be able to talk me out of it. Because also Sam would never want to give up. I mean, that's their thing. Like, they never give up on each other. They never want to. So they're always going to try and find another way, which they have multiple times. Even though when the odds have been stacked against them, they found a way. Granted, when they found the way, shit has a tendency to have gotten much worse many occasions, like trying to stop all demons and remove them from Earth. Everything they did in season 8. Yeah, everything they did in season 8 to kind of get rid of monsters and supernaturals, that ended with angels falling to Earth. It's like, oh yeah, Dean getting the mark of Cain and dying and becoming, well, what he did. So, and then was, oh, what happened after that? Trying to get rid of the mark. Lo and behold, God's sister got released. So it's one thing after another. So I'm just curious, like, in your attempts to try and save him, what other catastrophe will be created in the process? It's something that's got to be thought about. What's also interesting about this too is like the Winchester special, that whole situation of having, it was kind of a special meal. It's like the one thing Mary can make, and she's like, it was a greasy heart attack on a plate. It's like a delicious greasy heart attack on a plate. And I love that Dean actually kind of tells a story of kind of like, you know, kind of trying to make it. Didn't end well, and their dad got super pissed. And, you know, he stops the story at a certain point because I think it's probably like, and Dad probably beat the crap out of us, you know, afterwards. Like, that's what it kind of seemed like, it was leaning down that direction, and he didn't want to tell. Or maybe he just saw the look on Mary's face, because for her, it's like she forgets just how much time passed while she was going. You know, that was something she struggled with, like when she first popped back up, you know, season 12 was struggling with that, and now, you know, it's just kind of a reminder of that. But it's like, hey, you might have been gone, but you're here now, and that's all that matters. You know, it means the world to me. Hell, I know it means the world to Sammy too, you know. So, because, you know, he was probably saying all that too because it's like, knowing that you're alive again is great to know, you know. And I think it's also because it's like, when I'm gone, Sammy's going to need somebody, and I'm glad it's you, Mom. He doesn't say that, but I'm sure that's what he was kind of implying with the whole situation. So, but it doesn't just stop there. Like, on the other side of this episode, we have the whole thing with Nick, which is interesting. Like, Nick's savage side doesn't just stop with humans. Apparently, he's very much like that even with demons, because he's looking for Abraxas, and there's that demon, and, like, you know, he gets the answers, and he stabs her in the eye, which is pretty damn brutal. Then he's trying to hunt down Mary. The moment the demon was like, oh, she got Abraxas, I was like, it's Mary, isn't it? Just because it's like, well, she's like the only main lady hunter that we, you know, kind of gotten to know. Like, I feel like that would be important enough for him to come after like that, storytelling purpose-wise. So I was like, oh, that, and it turns out to be the case. I wonder why I guess she understood why Nick was doing what he was doing to a certain extent, because it's like, oh, Abraxas killed his family, so it's like, okay, I'm gonna lie and tell him that Abraxas is dead so that he can move on and be okay. But it's like, no, he's like, I know you're lying to me, because the demon saw everything and knows that you locked Abraxas up. I even love that she tries to set him up with a trap, you know, but he saw it. It's like, even for someone who's not a hunter, I mean, to be fair, he knows a little bit because he was, you know, I guess he worked with them. And I mean, we didn't get the full scale of the picture of how long. Well, because let's not forget that was also while he was recovering, was most of that time that Dean was away, but also even when he was kind of better, like, how much time did he actually spend with Sam and the other hunters? Because it seemed like he knew a thing or two about capturing demons. Maybe it has, well, because he doesn't really remember his time with Lucifer, but he kind of does, so maybe some of that knowledge played a role. But it seemed more so everything he learned he knew from hunters, so I guess he just kind of picked it up. They kind of taught him how to survive and everything, you know, this side of that, well, you know, this fight against monsters and demons. So it's kind of sad because in the end, Nick was kind of driven by his revenge to the point he was willing to do anything because he was desperate. Because I guess for him, it's like, if he couldn't, because I think for him, there are only two outcomes. Like, because he makes it still, because let's not forget, he's making this all seem like, hey, I'm doing this because I want to know what happened to my family. But at the same time, he talked about the fact is, like, I can't do this without you, essentially. Like, I like hurting people and doing bad things. And his family was just an excuse. It was a catalyst to kind of reach into that dark, you know, aspects of himself, you know. And it's so interesting in that regard because, like I said, because he admitted it last time we saw him, but this time he's up here being like, no, it's all about my family. It's like, but you know that that's not true, so you were even kind of hoping Lucifer would come back because you don't feel like yourself without him. Like, I guess for him, it's like with everything that he's lost and the way he is now, it's kind of like, I might as well just be you and just drown, you know, kind of like Dean was drowning in Michael. But to be fair, their situations are different because Nick wasn't drowning inside of Lucifer the same way Dean was with Michael. There was that moment too when he was looking into the lockers, and then like there's a head in there, and just he looks at Mary like, I'm sure it's more so supposed to be like, where's the box? And she's kind of like, I don't know, but it's just funny because he's looking at this head that's in the locker like, what the hell is this? And she's like, I don't know. I know it's about the box, but just like you could add that other context to that scene in particular, so it just kind of is interesting to me. But I mean, in the end, he ended up getting the answers he wanted. Abraxas was following orders. It was Lucifer's plan, which I'm not too surprised about. I kind of figured, because I was thinking the twist was going, I didn't know, because initially I was like, oh, it's probably Nick who killed his own family, but then it was like, early on, it was like, oh, everyone kind of thought it was Nick and did the investigation. It's like, no, he wasn't there at the time, but it's like, yeah, Lucifer set the whole thing up, because it's like, just like, I mean, Lucifer is always about the bigger picture. Like, for him, it was all about getting a decent vessel, enough to the point until he got Sam. So for him, it's like, I guess he needs someone in a weak enough state so they'll completely submit, so he doesn't have a situation that obviously like Michael was having with Dean, where Dean was kind of fighting back. So by taking everything from Nick and kind of bringing out that darker nature in him like that, you know, it's like, was that dark nature always there, or was it the situation with his family plus Lucifer that damaged him like that? You know, it begs the question. And, you know, he ended up killing Abraxas, but it's not like it made anything better. I mean, but to be fair, they couldn't just let him go either, because it's like, in his long need for revenge, he ended up killing a lot of people. And even Dean chewed Sam out for it, because it's like, you should have known better. He was Lucifer's vessel. But Sam is like, but it's not stupid. It's called compassion for me giving him a chance, because the fact of the matter is that could have just as easily been me. One different mistake, one difference in the past, and that could have been me, you know, Lucifer was running around with for such a long time. I mean, he literally had you at one point in time, and if you hadn't fought back, that could have easily been you. And so, I mean, hell, you know, it could have easily turned into the situation. I mean, obviously, like, the way things played out in Apocalypse World, obviously, we're moments away from that happening. If Sam wasn't reached, and you know, and make the sacrifice that he did. But Dean is just kind of like, at some point you just got to let certain people go and just know you have to cut them loose, because there's no saving them. Obviously, he wasn't just talking about Nick. Obviously, he was saying that because he was also preparing, I guess, Sam for what was ultimately going to happen to him too. If they're like, you just got to let me go. So in the end, it was kind of interesting, because Sam's just kind of apologizing to Nick, because Nick's like, I had to know the truth, which once again, I still don't believe that to be everything, but I guess that's his truth that he wants to kind of tell everybody. I guess because he can't really admit the fact is that there's a part of him that kind of misses Lucifer. But he's like, I need to know the truth. And Sam's like, I'm sorry. He's like, don't be sorry for me. This isn't like about you. The fact of the matter is, this is about, you know, my revenge. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not damaged. But Sam is like, yeah, you are. And I couldn't do anything about it. The fact of the matter is, I'm not sorry for you. I'm sorry for all the innocent people you killed. Their blood is on your hands, and you will see their faces, and they will haunt you forever, and you deserve to burn for that. It's like, jeez. But the problem, and I'm curious about, though, is Nick going to be really that bothered by it or not? Also, I'll admit, too, I was almost scared that he was going to kill Donna. I was like, no! I was like, the moment the cop car pulls him over, I'm like, oh, man, that's about to suck. I was like, it's Donna, isn't it? And it turned out to be, I was like, no, Donna, please, please. Like, especially because Dean just went on his farewell tour, be kind of super messed up to kill. It's like, oh, good, he didn't. I guess because, like, you know, he wasn't trying to draw that much more attention to himself. Which is interesting, all the other people that's kind of gotten in his way. I guess it's because they've lied and all this stuff. So that's why he killed him. I mean, it seemed like he needed it. I guess he just gave it as an excuse. But the fact is he didn't kill Donna, I guess, kind of speaks volumes. But who knows? It's a very interesting situation we find ourselves in this regard. Nick getting locked up like that. And now Sam, you know, and Mary knowing the truth about what's going on with Dean. Obviously, Castiel and Jack don't know either, but obviously, once again, none of them are going to give up. Sam's going to be like, okay, I'll work with you in this, but it's like, no, you're going to be trying like hell to find another way. I'm assuming that's going to include trying to talk to Billy, considering the fact that she kind of set this all forward, so we're just kind of have to wait and see in the long run what's going to end up happening with all of this. I'm very interested to see what happens. And now moving on to this week's episode of Legacies. A very interesting episode. A lot of things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I like how they kind of do very interesting things. I mean, it even kind of... I forgot what the title of this episode is specifically, but it is kind of essentially let me start with the end or something like that, which is interesting because you kind of start at the end and then you work your way back in multiple regards because you go 3 days earlier to where, you know, you have Hope trying to steal Alaric's car to go, you know, check on Landon. And he's like, where are you going? Like 3 o'clock in the morning with my car. She's like, you know, I said some harsh words to you last time. I was going to change your oil. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And then he's like, the fact of the matter is you made it clear that, you know, I am just an authority figure in your life. So she tells him about Landon and is like, oh, off they go, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like, for one, he's also trying to teach her on the road, too. She's like, what are you doing? He's like, asking her geography questions. And then when they pull up and he's like, and that's osmosis. And she's like, thank God, like another moment too soon, you know. It's like, okay, so she's like, I get it. You know, you're Professor X. I'm Wolverine. And he's like, I was more of a DC dude. She's like, fine, you're Batman and I'm Robin. I'm like, I love that. That's another interesting thing about this. I was thinking about that. It's like, this show is wacky in a good way. It's just kind of interesting because it has a very different tone to like the originals and the Vampire Diaries. It has a similar tone, but I feel like it's a lot more jokey than those two. And once again, that's not in a bad way. It just kind of, I feel like it helps distinguish this show even more. Because I feel like tone-wise, like, the Vampire Diaries and the originals were kind of the same, in my personal opinion, and it's just always how I've been. I feel like the originals was a little darker than the Vampire Diaries, but that could 100% just be my own imagination. I just feel like the originals was a lot bloodier. Like, I'm not saying the Vampire Diaries wasn't bloody, but it's like I feel like they went a lot bloodier and darker in certain regards when it came to the originals. But, you know, that's always just been my thought. But nevertheless. But it was kind of interesting because Sayla was so, you know, Landon kind of meets her. It took him like a week to finally, I guess, you know, summon up the courage to tell her the truth about who he is. But at first she didn't believe him because she ended up drugging him. I felt so bad when the dog passed. I was like, what the hell happened? And then she's like, yeah, I guess the drugs set in. And he's like, oh, wait, what drugs? And he passes. I was like, geez, you drugged your own son? But I guess it's because she didn't believe him to be Landon. Because it's like, how did you find me and stuff like that? I'm sure was kind of in the back of her mind because it seemed, because he brings up this whole thing about the school for monsters and stuff like that, you know, witches, vampires, werewolves, that whole situation. And then it's like, okay, so we kind of get the puzzle kind of fully put together now. It's actually kind of interesting, and you could tell what she was kind of doing from the beginning, but when everything was kind of being explained, Sayla was very cold to Landon all of a sudden, but when she was talking to him about hope and everything, you saw the smile on her face, but she was like, I don't know who your father is, and I'm just not built to be a mother, and walked away. It's like, you're doing that because you're trying to push him away. It's, you know. I love even Alaric being like, yeah, bad liars look away from their kids. Good liars look them in the eyes like that. So it's like, you know, as a parent himself, he understood the situation. But we basically learn about Sayla. Basically, after she left service, you know, military, she ended up joining an organization we later on find out is Triad, which kind of makes sense in a sense because, like, obviously, like, the typical triad of the supernaturals of vampires, werewolves, and witches, which is interesting considering the fact is, you know, it's very symbolic because Hope herself is a triad in that regard. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, I feel like there's probably even an even bigger point to that, but that's so fascinating. Apparently this group is the one that has access to Malivore. It's like, where did it come from? How did they get, like, was it always there and they just built this, like, company or this building around it? Or is it like they tracked it to this building? Like, was it always there, or does this thing move? How have they kept it confined in this particular place? It's kind of interesting because it seems like it's an abstract thing, but no, it's like a literal dark pit of tar. So it's like, okay. So that's interesting because obviously this all about the daggers. I mean, not just the dagger, but, you know, the dagger being one of multiple keys. But the thing is, like, who's actually summoning these creatures? Because these things are being pulled from Malivore to come after the dagger, but I'm assuming it's Malivore itself, not unless someone else. Because I'm like, because the entire time, like, this group triad would feed these monsters to the pit, you know, Malivore. But it's like, why? Are they feeding it because they want to make it stronger, or you know, because the dude that's running things, because I'm skipping around here, but he kicked the dude into it later on for seeing the picture of Sayla and Landon. I'm like, is that supposed to be Landon's dad? Has he been feeding Malivore this entire time? Is that what that was about? Because he's trying to make it super strong? Like, because I'm like, is it a, you know, are we kind of got like a Speed Force type of thing where like Malivore has a consciousness of his own? Is this dude like the embodiment of Malivore? Is he like kind of a human, like, you know, is he a human body possessed by Malivore, or is he just, like I said, Landon's dad or whatever? It's hard to say in that regard because we still don't, we know so much, yet at the same time we still know so little in that regard. So it's interesting because Sayla brought it up. The fact of the matter is she hunted monsters and they got put in that pit, but then she started realizing more and more, it's like, whoa, I'm forgetting things. So she wrote it down and realized like her memory was being tampered with. So why? Because the whole thing was about keeping monsters, supernaturals a secret, but it's like, it can't just be about that, because it's like, whatever it is she stumbled upon, they try to get rid of Sayla by throwing her in the pit. And apparently when she came back out, it was 2 years later, which also means whatever goes down in a pit isn't a permanent thing. But the thing is, she came out 2 years later. Everyone else, it's been many, many years in that regard, and they don't remember, but it's like, why? I'm also curious, like, why is it that when things come back, the memories of them don't come back either? Maybe only if you're alive to have the memories of those things can you not be affected. I mean, I'm skipping around here, but it's like, no, because Hope remembers everything. Because, like, the moment she, like, Landon was like, oh, I wonder what my mom was like. And she's like, well, she was an assassin, you know, that captured, you know, took down monsters and stuff like that. And I was like, that's not a joke. You said that. Like, that's too damn specific for you just to be randomly full of that. You remember. And then it's like, oh, yeah, we are getting the story. It didn't click in my head because I'm an idiot. Because it's like, she's literally telling us the entire story of what went down. So it's like, how can you have that memory considering the fact is that your memory is gone? But it's like, no, it wasn't. And the question is, why? Because it can't be because what Sayla injected her with was meant to just knock her out of commission so Sayla could do what she needed to do. So it's like, because she even said, you know, Hope would forget her too, but like Hope didn't. It might be because Hope herself is kind of in that same lane, and because she is maybe it's a combination of being a tribrid like she is, because it makes her immune to what's going on. Maybe it's her connection to, well, no, because I'm about to say it must be her connection to Landon, but it's like, no, Landon doesn't even remember. So, and maybe it's a combination of, because even the Michaelsons can be like, you know, compelled, you know, it just takes someone powerful enough, but it's like, I'm curious about it. It has to be her being a tribrid, or like what protected her that entire time from the memory wipe when, you know, even Alaric and Landon were affected. Even though Landon is like, whoa, so you're saying I was born in Satan's pit? Which is kind of an interesting thing, like, especially considering the fact is Sayla has no memory of like those 2 years she was gone. But she did say the benefit of that is no one remembers her. But that guy that was in, because he was also at the house earlier too, when Sayla ended up killing that monster. Obviously he's from Triad, but it's like it's the same dude. So it's like he showed up there specifically. Does he remember Sayla? Because he was asking, do you know who lives here? And, you know, Alaric was kind of like, no, we were just looking for the highway. So it's like, that's what kind of pushes in my head to be like, I think he's got to be Landon's dad, because he didn't want anyone to know about that picture, because it's like, it would have, you know, if it got out from other people, it probably would have been an investigation and stuff or something. Or maybe it's just simply because he knows, maybe he's not Landon's dad, but at the very least he knows who and what Landon is, because Landon is constantly drawn to the keys. Like, Landon's kind of shown that he is part of Malivore. Like, he doesn't appear to be some, like, supernatural, but it does seem like he might be the most supernatural of supernaturals, because at the very least, he's part literal darkness, apparently, like a hellhole pit. He's kind of part that, interestingly enough. So that's definitely interesting. I don't know what abilities that necessarily comes with, but that's why he's so drawn to these particular items, and why everything's gotten activated around him, and why a danger gets attracted to him, because he himself is attracted to these things. Because I love later on, because he had told Cope, it's like, I'll never hurt you again, and it's like, actually I think they're after this, and pulls out the urn, and it's like, he's like, what? He's like, I'm so sorry, like I stole it, like I stole the dagger, but I don't know why. Hope, I promise on everything I did. She's like, it's okay, it was okay, I believe you, which I thought was kind of neat. I even love that, like, Hope and him started making out and stuff like that. It's like, for him, it's like, yeah, I haven't really had much experience with girls. It's like, this girl asked me out to like prom or whatever, and I turned her down. And so she told everyone I was too poor to pay for it. That's why I didn't take her. And in Hope's like, my first kiss was with a 90-year-old vampire who helped kill my mom. And even Landon was like, wow, that's super messed up. It's like, yeah, that is weird and messed up and awkward, isn't it? So that was interesting. But I love they're making out and stuff, and then in comes a lark being like, oh my god, and it's just this weird awkward moment. It's just like, no, I get it, you're just a normal, horny teenage boy, don't let anyone tell you that's not normal, or let them tell you otherwise. Also, they get attacked by a fishman, a mermaid, and I love that. How fast can he be? He's on land and he's smashing through the door. Oh crap! Also was actually surprised because I was like, okay, the fishman literally died because an explosive was in the ground and that knocked everybody out, but I didn't expect that. But then she pulls out the urn later on. I was like, oh, that's still intact. I was like wondering what happened about that. It's like, right, I forgot. The dagger is unbreakable, so obviously the other locks are too. I'm actually kind of surprised because I was so certain that Landon was going to be one of the keys to the lock, but it's like, no. Because he's part Malivore, its need to be released is flowing through him because he is part of whatever it is, So whatever Malivore is exactly, besides just being this hellhole pit, this entity or whatever, it exists. Part of it exists in him, and that's why he's so drawn to these particular keys. So now they're back at the Salvatore school. That means more supernaturals, forgotten supernaturals, are going to be coming after them for it. And also, Hope is going to be lying to Landon about what she knows, but obviously she told Alaric, which I guess is supposed to be kind of representative of her trust for him, and just kind of because I'm sure this is something she feels like she can't handle on her own. They can't be the only one that knows the truth about this, but it's kind of sad in the end because I also love that Saya was kind of like, oh, wow, you actually believe me, when she was talking to Alaric, and Alaric was like, yeah, I literally, my daughters were implanted into their mother by a coven of witches. So it's like, yeah, my mind's pretty open to a lot of this stuff. But the sad thing is, because for Sayla, she felt like leaving Landon leaving Landon behind was the only way to make sure that he had, a good life. But now she realizes, like, holy crap, he's a good person, but, had a shitty life, and that's my fault. It's like, I could have been there for him. I should have, but I thought I was doing the right thing. That's the sad part of, being a parent in that case. And that was why she did what she did, because she thought, maybe she felt like if she got rid of herself, the people that were after her, potentially, it would pull them all away from Landon. It's like Landon wouldn't be in as much danger because he met her, because he knows everything now. He would always be in danger again. At least this was her way of trying to protect him. It's also interesting, too, because once again, it's like she came out 2 years later, so who's to say she won't come back out again in another 2 years, or maybe sooner, who knows? Or maybe there's a sad thing about it is that she's gone forever and Landon will never remember that he met her, which is sad and depressing. I talked about all that stuff at the beginning about, this show being a little wacky, but it's like, no, that's uber depressing. You met your mom and you will never remember her. It's like that whole Malivore thing is depressing as hell, wiping people from existence. It's like, why is this thing capable of doing that? Is this thing I would assume this thing's supposed to be ancient and old, so it's is this thing from the beginning of time, the beginning of everything? What is this thing exactly, Because it's also interesting too to kind of see how much, when it wipes someone's memory from existence, how much it affects someone. This is our first time actually seeing the effects, because Saya was wiped away. Literally everything, every reason they were on this trip in the first place, how they met up with Landon, everything that went down in this episode connected to her, they don't remember. So that's so interesting, because it's not like it just builds a narrative around. It's every memory that's connected to that thing that disappears gets wiped. So for them, it's just kind of we were at this school and we left for some reason. At least that's Alaric's point of view. And then for Landon, it's probably I went looking for my mom and now I'm with you guys. I woke up in the field. I don't know. So probably for him, that whole week that he was, because he had found his mom 2 weeks ago. So that 2 weeks probably is all completely gone from his memory. So all of it, not just like the parts with his mom. So it's a deep cleanse, and it's like a complete cut of your memories. So that was kind of fascinating. So, but once again, that's also something too. I was saying, like, will they ever come back? Because even when Seiya came back, her memories, people's memory of her didn't come back, which is interesting considering the fact is, even though that happened, I guess it makes sense because she was pregnant with Landon at the time, so of course his memory wouldn't be affected by her. That's so interesting too, that the fact that, because who took the photo and everything, because someone knew about them and took the photo, or maybe she just got some random person to take it. So, because it's like it was left with Landon, so it seemed, I don't know. There's a lot of questions in that regard too. I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us, and what other supernatural creatures long forgotten are going to pop up and come for these other, this one particular key, but we still have no idea where the third one is, so. Not unless it turns out to be Landon, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be something else entirely, like an object like the knife or this urn, so. I'm very excited to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.